If you've been watching my recent videos, you're probably getting a bit sick of seeing this thing. I am a bit too. So I don't know how much I'll put in this video, make it pretty short. This is just finishing up. Got this thing more or less working. The last thing that was a problem was the 1000 volt range, and turns out that it was a trimpot, and I've got a replacement here. I'll see how it's physically different, but well, the core of it's the same, but it's mounted differently. I'll see what and adapt the existing mounting hardware to this new control. And more key switches. I've replaced these 10 here, and I really should have bought 25 up front, but oh well. Some of these are dicky, like sequential's not, that light should come on. If I press it a million times it eventually does, but that's got to be replaced. I'll go through these and pick out which 10 are the least reliable and replace them, and leave the others. And put this thing in and maybe calibrate it. I'll keep it short. So I've replaced these 6 switches, and the remaining, and a couple of others on here, that one and that one, 1000 volt plus polarity. But these work, but they're dicky, and I want to replace them too. So I have to buy another 10, and I'll have 5 left over when I replace those 5. So I am going to have to come inside of this thing again, because I'm going to put it back together as it is, because these do work, but they're just spongy, no tactile feedback. And I've had it with this bloody tight wiring. I'm going to replace the wires that come from that pot with some other wires. This is only rated at 300 volts. Presumably this stuff here is rated at 1000, and when I take those off, I'll have some fairly long links that I can replace a few of these with, and then I should get enough room to be able to hang this out a good couple of inches from the front panel. This power switch, just a bit sloppy, so I'm going to replace it with a newer, smaller one in order to be able to easily disconnect it and pull this away when there are longer leads. I'm going to put an inline connector in here on that power switch, so it'll just sit down the back there. No, it'll have to be on the front, won't it? It'll have to be in here. Yeah, just from the switch to here, and then another one of these on there. And then there's the pot to replace. To make that a bit easier, I've pulled off the side plate. Well, there's 2 side plates. There's the one with the handles, but there's another side plate of the frame, which is going to make it easier to get to these wires for resoldering and to get to that pot for replacement. So yeah, a bit more buggerising around than I expected to do, but I'm going to have to come in here again when I eventually replace these switches. So that's all I'm going to do. As I had hoped, there's nothing special about this apart from the wires coming out the end instead of on the side like that. Just drilled out those 2 rivets from this holder, and it comes with a little screw extension. It has a slot that fits into there. I won't try and do this on camera, but yeah, that fits into there, and then the end of that goes into here. So yeah, I've just got to find something to hold this onto there. I need some 2.5mm bolts, M2.5, but I'm not sure if I've got them. Oh, that should be good. So there's the replacement trimpot installed. I cut the little wires down to about 5mm, wrapped this single core wire a few turns around that. That photo I just showed, I had the coils too close to the body. There was danger of them touching the frame, so I've moved them out along the lead a little bit, a couple of millimetres off from the body, and resoldered them. Heat shrink on top, and beautiful, there it goes. And this output wiring, I couldn't make use of the old one, so I've decided to replace it all. These 2 go to the current limit trimpot, current limit potentiometer. The others are the high voltage output and sense high and low, and this stuff's only 300 volts rated, so just to be safe I've stuck some plastic tubing around them. That comes out, that's about 1 millimetre thick, and from what I can tell this stuff is at least has a dielectric strength of at least 10,000 volts per millimetre, so that's more than ample, and we'll see how well that ties up to the front. But yeah, and for the power switch I've stuck a inline plug there and a replacement switch here, so I should be able to mount this, have it sitting down quite comfortably without stretching anything, nice and flat, a few inches away from the frame, and that enables access to the screws that hold down the buttons and display quite easily. There's still an issue with the current limit pot. You can turn the whole thing. I haven't worked out why that is yet, but I'll try and fix that as well. And there she is, all done. Why, that I've stuck a whole lot of hot snot on there to keep that in place. It does seem as if it was just nuts that weren't tight enough, but you could easily loosen them again by turning the knob too hard, so that will help prevent it coming loose again. There's all my plastic tubing wired onto the output terminals. Hopefully there's enough room. I think there is quite a bit of room in there for all that to fold up when it's lifted. It should be okay. And I've redone the traces that were cut and then rewired. Well, I've rewired the rewiring, and just got to lift it up, plug these on, turn it on to see what happens. All the front panels back on, side covers back on, high voltage amplifier boards back in, so it's all as it should be except a few covers aren't on. And I'm going to power it through this dummy load. It'll be limited by a 75 watt light bulb, so that if I've made a mistake in the power switch wiring, the worst that'll happen is that light will turn on. And in keeping with the laws of physics, power switches must be down in the southern hemisphere, because the on position must always point to the nearest magnetic pole. That's why in the northern hemisphere it's up for on, but southern hemisphere it's down for on. So, and it just so happened that this switch works the opposite way to the other switch, so it's wired perpendicularly, and yeah, it should be down for power on now. I'll turn on the power from the dummy load and see that nothing blows up. Good. And here's the test. Big flash from the light bulb just for a second. I'll do that again so you can see it. Just as it turns on, there's a flash for the inrush current to the transformer and charging the filter capacitors, I suppose. And oh, I haven't got the buttons back. Okay, let's stick in a number. 1 volt. Turn on the output. 100 milliamps. Correct. Next range should be 1 volt. Good. 100 volts. Range we get 10 volts, and on the 1000 volt range we should get 100. Oops, I've got to turn on that. Very close. I adjusted that new trim pot to around about the same position, 61 ohms, as the old one was set. So it's producing around about the right voltage on that 1000 volt scale. So that all looks good. Are my buttons any better? 1, 2, sequential. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Sequential works properly now, or did. Yeah, it looks like you have to press one of these to turn the sequential off. But anyway, they're all good switches now. I'm going to replace 3, 4, 5 more. Okay, clear. 1 volt range. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. No, it doesn't do anything. 1, 2, 3, 4, 7. Close. Next range. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1000. Looking pretty good. So yeah, now I have to just put all the covers back on, let it warm up and calibrate. I'll make it so that this agrees with this meter, because this is the best meter I have. It's the only one of my 3 6.5 digit meters that has been near a calibrator that I know of. When I bought it, it was from a used test instrument supplier, and they had it connected to a calibrator and it was showing 1.0s. I forget what range it was, but yeah, it was agreeing with the calibrator very well. So this one is the one I trust the most, so I'll make that agree with this. I think that's it. So if that's all you want to see, please give it a like and maybe subscribe. If you're interested, I might just do the calibration in this video as well, starting in a moment. And anyway, if you don't want to sit through that, thanks for watching. Give it a like. Catch you later. This bloody thing's developed a new fault. When I first turned it on, if I put in 1, it would show up as, instead of 0.1, or instead of 10, it would have 0.99. Sorry, 0.97. 0.99 is okay, but 0.97 is way off. And I had to cycle the power a few times before that went away. I've had that before one time, and it went away, it seemed for good, but no, it's come back. And even more annoying is this new fault. It's on the 1 volt range now. If I go to the 100 volt range, they just drop back. Sometimes it'll stick for half a minute, but it's now just dropping back. 100,000 volt range. Yeah. Took about 20 seconds that time. So something's still dicky in there. I'm hoping maybe I just didn't put the connections, the ribbon cable onto this board properly, but if that was true, the digits wouldn't work, and they do. That's all one keyboard for all of those. Sorry, one PCB for all of those. So if it's causing a problem with them, it should cause a problem with these as well. Mongrel thing. Now, it started to behave, wasn't dropping back to 1 volt all the time, and I've let it run for a few more hours, and I think I'll just go ahead and try and do the calibration. But I've noticed even now it's occasionally on the 1000 volt range, it's dropping into standby, but you know, there it's done it again, look, see? So now we're getting our 100 volts out, and sometimes it just goes into standby. So it's all to do with switching relays, but that doesn't explain how the decimal point shifts here when it does it. So I'll just persevere. I've taken the bottom cover off, and there's all the various adjustments. And first step is clear 1 kV and adjust for 0 volts. It's going down, nice. One supposed to be 0 volts plus or minus a couple of millivolts. On the millivolt range, we're down to 3 millivolts. Very close. 0.2 of a millivolt, which is better than the 2 millivolts that they say to get it within. So we'll leave that one. I'm not going to do any more videos on this unless something really interesting turns up. So, thanks for persevering so far. If you liked, please hit that like button, and I'll catch you later.